Hello, welcome to Patty and Robert's YouTube channel. Today I'm going to talk about using messaging on Upwork, how you can communicate with your client. Let me just move my picture out of the way here. Okay, messaging is important on Upwork. Um, One of the key measures Upwork uses for the job success score is your responsiveness. So you always want to respond to job offers and requests in 24 hours. But even on general communications, you don't want to let things lie. And the way you prove that is by putting messages where Upwork can see them, which is in their messaging tools. The messaging tool provides a history of all the communications and documents your work on the job, and it provides proof that you completed the work. So, how do you get to Upwork messages? If you're in the web application, you'll see it up as one of the menu items. It's available on a desktop app on your PC. And if you have the mobile app, it's available there as well. It's major menu items. Um, you'll also get to see notifications, which is usually a bell with a dot if there's notifications that are active. This is how you know you have new messages. So don't ignore the notifications. Okay, what kinds of messages are there? Well, basic messaging is like text messages. Um, you can type questions, you can discuss deliverables, you can use it to schedule meetings where you talk face to face. You can also use it to share files and attachments. And for the most of the time, this should include all deliverables. I'll talk a little bit more about doing deliverables on a client system and how you handle that, but you should always have summary of any work that you do. You can set up video conferences or leave video messages. They use a tool called Loom, which is very similar to Zoom, and it provides a record of the conversations so that you can let both Upwork and the client know what's going on. Um, the integrated video conferencing, as I said, uses Loom. It has a built-in scheduler, so that handles all the time zone issues when you're working with somebody in a different time zone. Um, and if you're familiar with Zoom, Loom is very much the same. There is a tutorial available if you're not, so you can always go out and do that. Um, if you're going to be working much online, you should always have a camera and microphone on your computer. So that means you should make sure you're dressed appropriately, check what's in your background. And for a lot of people, you may want to consider a virtual background, like what I have in most of my meetings. Using client messaging tools. Upwork would prefer that you use their tools, but some employers have in-house secured tools that their employees, your clients, are required to use. This can include email, secure email, video conferencing, and it can be used for specialized delivery of service. So they may have a specialized app, they may have licensed software that you need to use. And so you may need to use their tools. You want to be really careful about using the client's tool before the contract is awarded. Um, I would recommend you use Upwork's tools, but if you have to use client's tool for an initial interview, make sure you document the results on Upwork messages. The problem is if you're not hired, Upwork will suspect that you went off platform, that the client talked to you, offered you a gig, and then told you to work and not use Upwork. And Upwork frowns on that. So Even if you do the work or do the interview, make sure it's all documented on Upwork's tools. Once you've have the contract awarded, it's not nearly as much of a problem. But you still should provide a status on milestones in delivery and Upwork messages. This is how Upwork can help you if there's any problem with the contract. You have a history of showing, what questions you asked and what you did. And especially if your deliverables on the client system, document what you did and put it in a message just to confirm that it's been done. This can be as simple as, "Hey Joe, I completed the work in such and such a system, um, and just want to let you know that it's there." Okay, notifications. I mentioned that there's a little notifications icon. It's a bell on the menu bar. Um, so when you go into Upwork, you'll see if there's a notification there, if it's highlighted. Um, you also can get notifications in emails, and you can control when you get notifications. Um, you can set to only get notifications for specific types of activities. And types of activities are things related to the contract. So this is a milestone done, deliverable completed, a new contract awarded. So you can select which kinds of things you want to get notified for. You can also get emails on those notifications. And you can say, how often do you want it? Um, do I want an email for everything? Do I want one email per day? Do I want an email as soon as the notification occurs? There's a number of settings. I would recommend that you get notifications for everything unless you're working on a client for a long period of time and the notifications become cumbersome. Okay, some professional communication practices. Certainly, you want to set expectations up front, establish hours of availability. So let the client know when you're going to be available and when you're not, so that if you are not, you can they'll know you're not going to be there to respond. And then commit to response time. So you want to tell them how quickly you'll respond and then make sure you do it. And again, that's something Upwork measures, so you want to do it as quickly as possible. You want to keep the tone and language as clear, professional, and friendly as possible. Um, it's always hard to find the right balance, and you have to uh, listen to the client and see what kind of relationship you have. It's never hurts to ask something about the client, where they work, that type of thing. But if the client doesn't seem to enjoy that information, don't push it. Um, just make it professional. Um, and if you have any questions, don't be afraid to request a video conference. Um, a lot of times you can clear things up much more quickly with a video conference than trying to text back and forth forever. Formatting messages, Upwork messages, it's not Word, so you're not going to be able to do everything you can to make your messages look pretty, but you want to make them look professional. That means you probably want to use emojis sparingly. That is one thing that Upwork lets you do, but a lot of clients don't like emoji-ridden messages. Formatting is limited compared to Word. For instance, there's no bullets. Um, Now you can write something in Word and paste it in, and it'll carry the bullets across. Or you can just use dashes if you're typing directly in the application. Um, Spaces between paragraphs are not automatic. When you type a paragraph, when you hit the enter key in Word, it automatically puts spacing between the paragraph, and it depends on your settings how big of a space. Well, none of that carries over into your messages. So you need to make sure you put carriage returns or use the enter key to create double spacing so that it's easier to read. Nobody wants to see a wall of words. Um, and especially if you're asking questions, leave room for responses because the client will probably copy it um, to go back to you, or they might just type right in on your message with responses telling you what the answers are. And you can always use headings to group your ideas, especially if you're getting into something complex that you want to cover. Managing conversations. Messages are grouped in threads. Um, and you can get a lot of threads if you have a lot of contracts. Each contract has a separate thread. So that means you can have multiple threads per client. Um, you can manage those threads. Uh, you can search by the contract or the client name to find a particular one, especially useful if it's been a while since you talked to a client. You can filter by status or contract type. So, is it an active contract? Is it closed? Um, and you can also hide old threads. Um, I only do that if I'm doing a lot of work for the same client and I wind up getting multiple contracts. Um, and I don't want to suddenly jump on the wrong thread. Um, so then it might be worth hiding, but otherwise, um, it's good to be able to see the contracts. So etiquette by project phrase. Um, Pre-contract, you always want to make sure you reply quickly, use messages to clarify the job scope, and schedule meetings. Um, During the contract, you want to use it to provide regular updates. Even if you use a client system for day-to-day communications, as I said, you want to update it in messages and then confirm the deliverables, especially if the deliverable is on a client system. Etiquette by project phases. Post-contract, you want to confirm client satisfaction. Um, So after you've done the job, just go in and make sure they're happy with everything. Make sure the client closes the job when it's done. A lot of people get afraid, well, if I close the job, then they can't give me any more work. That's not true. They can simply reopen the job with a new milestone. They have to do a new milestone anyway, so it's not a problem to have the contract closed. The advantage for you is then you get your feedback, um, and that goes into your job success score. Um, and then don't be afraid to request feedback. Um, Especially if they close the job and nothing's been done after a week and you think you did a good job, don't be afraid to ask them. That's your livelihood. It's how you're going to be rated on Upwork. So it's important the client understands that that feedback's important to you. And if the client mentioned that he might have additional work, then um, keep a tickler file. Go back in after a few weeks or a couple of months, depending on how long they said it might be, and just say, hey, I'm still around, I'm available. Let me know if you have anything. Some common pitfalls, um, inappropriate tone. Sometimes um, it's easy to be too informal and not um, and sort of piss off a client who is more formal. Um, or it's possible to be too cryptic and keeping things short when it's helpful to build a relationship with the client. So you want to find that balance, and a lot of that is listening to the client's reactions. So don't be afraid to ask them questions about, where they work or what's the weather like, that type of thing, to help you get started with them. But if they seem like they don't like those questions, then avoid them in the future. Um, Avoid ambiguous messages. Um, and especially if the client gave you a message that you think's ambiguous, schedule a meeting to clarify. You don't want to let things hanging and then find out, a week later, the client's not happy with your work because you misunderstood what they were asking for. So don't let ambiguous messages hang around. Another common pitfall is not documenting your work. If you don't document your work, Upwork can't help you if there's any problems with the contract. Um, Another one is violating client privacy rules. I mentioned before that some clients require you to use their systems. A lot of times that comes with an NDA or something uh, that says you can't disclose their information. So you don't want to put client proprietary information on Upwork messaging if they've asked you not to. For most clients, it's not a problem if you do the deliverable on Upwork messaging, but if they've asked you not to, don't put anything on messaging that exposes client data. So check us out in our next video. Don't forget to like, share, or subscribe. And if you need coaching, contact us and have a great week.